Hello artist! This is, I think, one of the most fun videos of the year where I get to show you which colors have been my go-to favorites for the entire year. Now, probably some of these have been more in use in the last months, but I really try to keep it very, very specific to my yearly all-stars, superstars. As you know, I love to use all brands. I gave up that whole a palette for brand concept years ago, and I highly recommend that for everyone because I don't believe that there is one brand that gets it right all the time, always, and I want to use the prettiest colors from each brand. Of course, this is also a personal taste type of thing, all the time. And so I really don't want to have brand-specific palettes. I will mention which ones of the paints that I am swatching are more recent, just to give you an idea, and I'll also try to tell you if they're more unique to the specific brand that I'm using. In general, because I am in Austria, I try to use more European brands. It makes more sense because then I don't have to pay for, import, shipping, taxes, customs, that type of thing. But some colors are more unique, or I just really, really like the formulation. And so I also have brands that are not European. I will mention as many details as I can about each individual paint. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. And also I would love to know your favorite colors. So the first color is Buff Titanium. This is a color I've had in my palette for quite some time, more than a year, so several years. The recent change that I made is that I actually include the Daniel Smith gouache paints. Daniel Smith came out this year, I think, with gouache paints. I had their watercolor Buff Titanium in my palette before, but once I got the gouache, I changed it because I find it more opaque and just more intense. And that to me makes sense because I like to use this color to kind of lighten and muddy up other colors. And so I really enjoy having the gouache and just having more of that intensity and opacity. Next we have Schimncke Naples Yellow. I've gone through, I think, several tubes of this color. Every brand makes a Naples Yellow. It's a very, very standard color, but most of them I find don't look like this. The Schimncke version is very, very creamy and like buttery and lighter than most other brands. My Mary Blue, I think, have like 3 Naples Yellow in their lineup, and one of them is quite similar. But besides that, I really haven't seen any Naples Yellows that look like this, and so this one is my favorite. Again, I like the opacity here, and it just makes for really pretty coral colors when I mix it with bright pinks, which you will see next, later in the swatching. And it also makes really pretty kind of earthy greens when I mix it with ultramarine blue. So that's why I really like this color. Moving on to Daniel Smith Nickel Azo Yellow. This has been a favorite of mine for years. It's just a really beautiful, transparent, kind of pushy color, which I love for yellows. I really, really love it. I use it a lot in landscapes and florals. I don't use a ton of it, but it really kind of pops and adds some luminosity and light to paintings. This is another color that every brand makes. I've now ran out of the Daniel Smith one, so I'll probably try a different brand. I don't think there are huge differences from what I've seen, so I'm not completely attached to the brand here. Then we have Qor Quinacridone Gold. Quinacridone Gold is like one of these, I feel, super popular colors, and it is quite versatile. I really enjoy using it. Again, I kind of splatter it. The Qor paints, I have a video dedicated to that. They kind of push most other watercolors. When you drop them into them, it kind of pushes it away, so it doesn't really blend or it kind of pushes itself into the colors, and if those colors happen to be granulating, separating watercolors, you get really, really interesting effects. And that's why I think this is the only color that I have from Qor, because they're so expensive here in Europe. I think also in the US they're quite expensive. Their tubes are really small, but I just really enjoy this formulation. The color I think is quite standard and most brands offer it nowadays. Next we have a really unique color. Again, this one I would say is brand specific. And this is Lukas Naples Yellow Red, or I think maybe it's reddish. This is just kind of this opaque, semi-opaque, let's say, soft orange. And I find it, again, to be very unique. And I love the mixtures that I get when I mix this with my bright pinks. And also with my purples and lavender, then it creates really interesting semi-neutrals. And this one is really, really unique. So this one is from Lukas. I know that Schmincke has a color by this name, Naples Yellow Reddish. It looks nothing like this one. It's more of like a pale peachy color. Nothing like this one. And you can find these in full pans and in huge tubes. I really love it. And I highly recommend trying it. Lukas is not very expensive, and so if you like the look of this, then definitely give it a try. It's quite a unique color, and I use it all the time. Next, we have from Winsor & Newton. This is Quinacridone Red. This is not a unique color. Daniel Smith's version is called Quinacridone Coral. It's just this really lovely, warm, pinky color, and I do like using it. I also mix it with white to create kind of more pastel-y colors. And yeah, that's probably as close as I get to red in my palette. I don't like using red, and I almost never use it. Sometimes vermilion type of color. Next is probably the most exciting discovery of the year for me. And this is Da Vinci Opus Pink. I love, love, love pinks, and I'm very, very particular and specific about them. And this is a recent addition from this year, and I'm so, so happy that I discovered it. To me, it's like the perfect pink. With this one and the Quinacridone Red, and then the next color you'll see, I feel like all my pink needs are covered, and I absolutely, absolutely love it. And again, it makes for beautiful, like corally, pinky, peachy shades when I mix it with all of these here. So this is Da Vinci Opus Pink. This is an American brand that I highly recommend trying, especially if you're in the US. Next is my Ride or Die pink. For several years now, I've gone through, I don't know how many tubes of this color. This is Holbeine's Bright Pink. And this, I think, is classified as a fugitive color, which is the classification that all of these paints that have this really kind of fluorescent look to them get. I did my own light fast testing. I just hung on my window a swatch of this for, I think, around 6 or 8 months. And it barely changed color, so I feel comfortable using this. I had other colors that I liked using before that just completely disappeared, so I stopped using them. But this one, I feel comfortable using it in my artwork, and I just love it. Yeah, these are like my star pinks, and I never have now any palette. I wouldn't want to have any palette without them. Next, we have a convenience color, which is Rose of Ultramarine. I have used this color quite a bit this year. I'm not sure I absolutely need it in my palette, but it is really pretty. If you have Quinacridone Rose in your palette and Ultramarine Blue, or French Ultramarine, then you don't need this color. But it is a nice convenience color to have, and it has that characteristic granulation of Ultramarine. And yeah, as you can see, it's a really pretty violet color. Next, one of my signature colors. Now currently I have, I think, some mishmash in my pan here. This is Cobalt Violet. Every brand makes Cobalt Violet. This is a very problematic color. It seems that it is very hard to formulate, and a lot of these tend to be very gooey or really weak, or just like really, they get really hard. It took me quite some time to find the best options. Also, a lot of brands have a color called Cobalt Violet, but it's much, much bluer, and I don't like that. I really like this more pinky version of these. My absolute favorite formulation in is Winsor & Newton. The next one is Rembrandt, and then I'm trying right now this color from Da Vinci. It's called Cobalt Violet Deep. I don't know if it's as perfect as the Winsor & Newton, but I do have this tube, so I'll probably go through it first. And this is, if you're not familiar with Cobalt Violet, this is a color that you can mix similar versions of it, but I love it for its granulation. And when you mix it with Naples Yellow, you really, really get beautiful shades. I have a video about mixtures. I'll try to remember to link that. If I forget, then remind me in the comments. Let's move on. Next we have lavender. This is lavender. This is a 100% convenience color. If you have ultramarine in your palette and white, you can mix this. I love to use it as it is, and so I have it in my palette and I use it all the time, and I've gone through a couple of tubes of it. My favorite formula is actually the Daniel Smith one. It's a little bit less heavy than other brands. It's a little bit less opaque, and I really like it. But right now I have Rembrandt in my palette. I have a huge tube of it, so I'll use that. I just wanted to mention it. Next is my one blue, kind of the only one that I really, really need in my world for personal preferences. And this is French Ultramarine. I think, I'm not sure which one I currently have in my palette. Most brands I'm happy with. It's reddish blue that is granulating, but my favorite is definitely, that's why I got this huge tube, is I really like my ultramarine blue to be as red leaning as possible. And thankfully I got to try this color. This is again by Da Vinci, and this is French Ultramarine Red shade. So it's just a tad redder than others, and I personally like that. Next we have Lukas Cobalt Turquoise. I actually saw an interesting video. I can't remember who did that. Maybe it was Mina, maybe? Swatching a bunch of the Cobalt Teals and Cobalt Turquoises. This one she didn't really like, and I understand why after I saw it next to other options, but I don't know, I guess I'm not very particular about the formulation or the opacity of this. I use it a little bit. I don't usually mix it with other colors. It just adds a pop of turquoise in my world when I suggest sea or water. And it also makes fun greens when you mix it with the yellows. Every brand has a version. They are quite similar, but you know, I will never judge someone being particularly particular with their colors. I don't mind the Lukas version. For me it works. It's very, very economical, where for other brands it tends to be a more expensive pigment and color. And so I'm happy with this one. I do like Daniel Smith's version. It's probably a bit more granulating. Not probably, for sure, it's more granulating. So if that aspect is really important to you with this color, then maybe check that out. But yeah, I just love having some version of this color in all of my palettes. Next we have Daniel Smith Olive Green. This I think is quite newer addition to my palette. I used to use the gold greens. Again, I think every brand has those. But I really find this olive green from Daniel Smith to have more depth. And it's just really, really lovely. I will say that I think most brands also have a color called olive green, but they vary, and I don't really like a lot of them. Speaking of Daniel Smith, I want to add another color that I like. This is Cascade Green, and I like to use this in, you know, trees, also suggestions of water, because it is a very bluish green and it has this turquoise granulation to it. Very unique color. I think other brands are coming out with similar versions. So I'll show you, for example, the Schmincke's Shire Blue. I would say kind of has that same vibe. I think the Cascade Green is a little bit better. Yeah, other brands are also definitely joining this whole granulating, separating game, which makes me very happy. The next color I want to mention is, again, from Daniel Smith. Daniel Smith are my kind of go-to when it comes to greens. This one is Zoisite Genuine, and I really love this color for its granulation. It's kind of one of my go-to darker colors when you want to add some darker value, some depth to your paintings. I don't really like any blacks or browns or grays straight out of the tube. This color heavily granulates and it looks really beautiful in paintings. I really love it in florals, in landscapes. It's just a very useful color to have. Now my next go-to dark color is Da Vinci Artemis, and this one has replaced Moonglow. I think they're almost identical, but the Artemis is just slightly, I think it's slightly a little bit more separating, and also you can get a huge tube, because I've already gone through, I think, 3 tubes of Daniel Smith Moonglow. So these colors are very, very similar. Moonglow is super popular, and I think this one is a very worthy dupe or opponent to that one. So Da Vinci Artemis, as you can see, it's kind of this muted purple color that has a blue granulation. Really, really love it. I use it probably in every painting, and it's beautiful. So before I go into some honorary mentions of colors that are just like a little bit newer, and I can't say they are superstars, but I have been enjoying them. The last color I want to mention is Lunar Earth from Daniel Smith. This is one of their super granulating colors, and as you can see, it's kind of this rustic, brownish, orangey color. The greatness of this is its granulation, and I love mixing it with other colors. It can be lavender or my pinks or even my yellows, and I use it a lot in seascapes for kind of sandy looking appearance. It's just really lovely because of that texture. Daniel Smith has a few colors from this range. They're called Lunar, Lunar Violet, Lunar Blue, Lunar Black, Lunar Red Earth. They're all super granulating, and I think they're all beautiful. I just use this one the most. I also use Lunar Blue sometimes, but I can't call it a superstar because I don't want to cheapen the word. So, honorable mentions. This is Seaglass from Da Vinci. I don't think this is a particularly special color. As you can see, it's just like this really vibrant turquoise. And I'm pretty sure I have similar colors to this in my palette. The camera doesn't like turquoises for some reason. So believe me when I tell you that in real life it's much more vibrant than it looks on screen, and a little bit more greenish. But it's just lovely, and I just like to use a little bit of it in kind of seascapes when I'm suggesting water. That's how I like to use this. The next is another, I don't know how special this color is, but it just came into my life and I noticed that I do like to use it. And this is Da Vinci Permanent Magenta. I'm pretty sure that other brands make something like this, but I love the intensity of it and that particular shade. It's kind of similar to Rose of Ultramarine. And then another interesting color that I want to mention is Schmincke's Tundra Violet. This is one of their super granulating colors. I don't know, I'm not as in love with the formula of these. I think maybe the pans are better purchased than the tubes. I do find these to be kind of gooey with quite a bit of binder in them. And so I'm not completely in love. Also, a lot of the shades are just not really my colors. But this one I do like, and I do find myself using it in paintings as kind of darker colors. And let's see if I have... So here you can see it a little bit better. It's called Tundra Violet. I don't know, yeah, I guess it is a violet, but you can see it has this kind of separation and it has this brown in it, and it granulates. So it's just a really, really interesting color. And I think that is it. These are the colors that I have used the most this year, again, with the exception of these last three that are more recent. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you got inspired to maybe pick up a few shades. Make sure you also watch my best of mixed media for 2023. And I will see you in another video talking about some studio picks that I really enjoyed this year. Also, make sure you check out my gift guide for gift ideas. And I will see you in another video very soon. Take care, bye bye.